All right, so I'm going to brokenly talk about classic WoW for the next couple minutes. So if I don't respond to chat very well, yeah, sorry about that. But I'm just going to be looking at notes and all that, um, because it's a big thing. It's undeniable. Even if you don't have any interest in playing it, this is going to have a pretty big effect on Blizzard as a company. It's the reaction to it is going to reverberate throughout the gaming community because it's a strong assertion that I'm making, but it's almost like the World of Warcraft that defines the MMO genre. It's the pulse. It's the really big vein. I don't know what kind of analogy to use for it, but it's a big player. So for something like Classic WoW to come out, it's not a small thing. Even if we're not interested in it, even if we played it already and we put in our time and we're tired of the toxicity that comes from players that have, yeah, Classic WoW, go Nostalrius, boo Blizzard Cogs, etc., etc., etc. It's still important. So yeah, so I'm going to talk about Classic WoW, the version of Warcraft that once it's out, it's also going to be called retail. So I don't know what people are going to say in the future, but anyway, very soon a demo of Classic WoW is going to be accessible by BlizzCon attendees and virtual ticket holders. Um, and this is going to be a limited demo. It's not a beta. It's a play test, a very quick demo that's going to give players access to the some form of Westfall for the Alliance and the Barons for the Horde. So fans are like I said, fans are going nuts over. Well, okay, I didn't say this, but fans are going crazy over a few things about the demo. One is the whole time thing. Apparently, it's a time limited demo, so it's almost like you're reliving the BlizzCon experience where you walk in, you get in line, you wait in line. Like sometimes I'd be in line for like half an hour or something like that. It's crazy over at BlizzCon. So we get shuffled in, we sit down, we put on headsets that I really hope that they clean up periodically, and we hop in. So in this demo, we're going to be level 15. We can choose whichever class, whichever faction, and then we're probably just plopped into these zones. Whoop de doo. And then we can start questing, and according to some of the descriptions, we can find out what happened to Mancrick's wife and something about Westfall. Excuse me. I guess I'm just not. I've quested through Westfall once upon a time, but it's been so long that I've totally forgotten about it. So sorry about that. But it's going to be a time limited demo, and from recent data mining, because of course Wowhead and MMO Champion, of course they're going to data mine the crap out of everything Blizzard releases, including a retro version of whatever they're putting out. It appears that uh, Blizzard built this in mind. It's embedded into the game that you can only be logged on for a certain amount of time, and there's going to be a cooldown before you can log back in. So there are a couple of facets to this. Like one is that one stark realization is that Blizzard is just not going to provide a whole bunch of servers just for this playtest or just for this demo. So this is something that Blizzard hasn't done before, because before this, playtests were just confined to BlizzCon. That's it. It's just fine. It's just confined to that small space. So a couple hundred stations, whoop de doo, and that's it. In this case, they're increasing this pool to up to the entire allotment of virtual ticket holders and as well as BlizzCon attendees. So that's like 30,000 BlizzCon attendees and God knows how many virtual ticket holders. That's potentially a lot of people. Of course, not everyone's going to be interested in playing Classic WoW. I might log in once, and if I see a long queue, I'm like, screw it, never mind, I'll just wait until it launches. But there's no doubt going to be a lot of people that play. So how does Blizzard cater to that? Do they potentially waste? I guess I wouldn't call it a waste, but do they invest a lot of money into a lot of hardware for what is just a temporary test? because Classic WoW may just be too early to handle something like that. Because if they had, if there was like a really big problem, then they would need to man this, and they only have 7 days to do it. So I guess this is the best way that they can handle it. The other way is to use server technology, current 2018 server technology, to mess around with it, to make it so that, yeah, everyone can log in. It's just that people will be phased. And yeah, however, that totally defeats the purpose of Classic WoW. That kind of technology it's not there. You're not going to see it. So I had some. I traded a bunch of tweets with someone. I forgot the name, but I traded a bunch of tweets. We got into it over the debate of it. And at some point, I was like, dude, like, it's like Classic WoW fans are going to run into this problem of server issues and whatnot, but they don't want but they don't. I don't even know what the quote was anymore. It was a really good one, but basically they don't want phasing, which is totally fine. They don't want phasing. They don't want sharding. That's totally cool. So this is the compromise. This is what you do. So there's been plenty of arguments about, oh, this is bad business from part of Blizzard. This is deceptive practices and all that. And if you want to feel that way, I'm not going to stop you. I just don't see it that way. I don't see it as like this ineffective or a deceptive business practice, because it's just a demo. It's a short time demo, and if you feel like this was the big selling point and the reason that you bought the virtual tickets, and it's not turning out that the way that you wanted it to, I would at least question. It's like, well, if that is the primary reason why you got the virtual ticket, then why'd you get it so early? It's not like they're gonna run out of virtual tickets. And on top of that, if you knew, once you know that Classic WoW is going to be on here, you also have to think to yourself, there's a cynical side to look at it, as if, hey, you know what? I don't know if Realm's going to be up. I don't know if this is going to be stable, right? This thing might totally go doo-doo. So I think I'll wait, me as a customer. I think I'll wait until I know that the realms are like looking okay and that the experience, sounds pretty cool. And then I'll go ahead and jump in and try it out. Cause man, I'm really not sure about spending $50 just for a demo. You feel me? So those are my thoughts on it. But yeah, people are pissed. They had some expectation, and now that these expectations were clarified, they're ruined. Another thing to consider, or at least something to observe, and I'm very, very interested in this, is if we can get some more data on what does it feel like the peak server amount is going to be. Is what we're going to see a strong indicator of what the WoW population is going to be like? Because part of me thinks like there might be multiple servers, but the overall maximum population that will be able to log on to each server is going to be very, very low. Because remember, this is just one zone. That's it. It's not dancing around in Orgrimmar. It's not hanging out in Ironforge. It's not going all over the world through the 40 plus, more than 40 something zones that are comprised of Classic WoW. It's just one per faction. That's it. You're going to get all these people clustered up. So the experience needs to be compromised in some way. Like, do you really want to have queues of people just waiting to get in? Or do you really want to have everyone crammed into this space, and you're going to have like dozens, hundreds of people all blowing up mobs all over the place, waiting for mob spawns to appear that aren't going to happen because correct me if I'm wrong, Classic WoW people, I don't believe dynamic mob spawns came in until the Burning Crusade. That's something that I'm trying to remember off of memory. So yeah, I'm very interested to see just how many people are going to be allowed on at a time. I haven't looked directly at comments from streamers, but I have a feeling that they're pretty pissed Because now what they thought was going to be like their classic WoW experience, and they're going to stream it for the viewers, make tons of money and get tons of views out of this. It's going to be this disjointed experience, and it's going to suck from a Blizzard standpoint, because now the perception, this initial impression is, might turn out like this. It might be like, oh man, I'm having fun, blah blah blah. All right, cool. I'm like, using rank one things, and this is amazing. And then all of a sudden they get logged off. So then it's going to be X amount of time of the streamer bitching about this whole thing, or maybe they'll try to make it positive, and then they'll just keep a conversation going about classic WoW and talk about the system and the experience and yada yada while they're waiting to get back in, depending on how long that is. If it's a long time, then at some point the conversation is more than likely going to degrade into a big old bitch fest. It's like, oh, stupid Blizzard and their dumb practices, and that's not going to feed into the climate very well, in my opinion. So it's it's gonna be interesting. The next that week is gonna be neat. It's going to be neat. I'm going to observe. I'm going to play test it. I think I want to play test it on the floor, because at least, just for fun. So, there are other things that people have been harping about. MMO Champion was pretty fierce on the statement that Blizzard put out about not being able to do certain things that you shouldn't be able to. And the big conversation that came out of that thread was wall walking, which I don't even know about back then. I played through Classic WoW, but I wasn't like so into it that I got into like, oh man, let's find all these little bugs, or let's do like this crazy exploring and try to wall jump, try to jump over mountains or go in a Heigel. I wasn't really interested in that stuff. I was just like, what do I do? I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I'm gonna use my wand attack, because that's like the best thing. People were really complaining about that and how that's supposed to be part of the classic WoW experience. But if that's something that's, considered a bug, and is something that is already experienced by so few people, apparently experienced by so few people anyway, what's the point? What's the real benefit of purposefully adding in bugs? And we don't know what the core of that particular bug is either. That might be some fundamental huge thing that would require days, weeks, months, years of work to re-implement. Because the game might have been built around some sort of certain system that caused that to happen, and Blizzard were like, okay, well, we're rebuilding this from the ground up, let's fix it. And then they fixed it, or they built it without that bug in mind. So do we really want to have that thing in? I think fundamentally no. I think players have waited. I would like to think that players have waited long enough, and not being able to jump over walls or whatnot is one small sacrifice to make. But there are other tweaks. There are other tweaks that were made that I think are totally fine, like widescreen support, like ditching the 32-bit client and sticking with a 64-bit one, adding this to the BattleNet launcher for the purpose of preventing hacks and exploits and all that stuff. Those are things that are, in my opinion, are benign and don't really interfere with the overall gameplay experience and the benefits of being able to play this version of classic WoW. Ooh. So I'm fine with that. I think that it's fear that is gripping some of these fans and critics because of this whole wall walking thing. It's like, what more could Blizzard do? What other insidious thing might Blizzard do to compromise my precious WoW experience, which should be respected? And I think I'd like to think that Blizzard is respecting that experience as best as they can. But there are people that are scared, and I think part of it, again, is fear. It's also because of the conversations that come from other players that do want to compromise the experience and say, hey, you know what? I really think that whatever transmog that we earned from Classic WoW, we should be able to carry it over to current WoW, which is an idea that I don't really support. I do believe that Classic should be this enclosed system. I believe Classic WoW should be an island off in the distance, and the two games, they don't really talk to each other. Current WoW, classic WoW, don't let them talk to each other, with the exception of the BattleNet chat client, which is an external thing anyway. I think that's totally cool. But I don't think that should be a thing. It's just that there's this almost overwhelming fear in part of some players that things are going to be changed. Like, oh no, there's going to be balance changes. I think that's something to be a little bit scared of, because part of it's going to depend on, I think, the weight of the audience. If there's enough clamoring to say, hey, you know what, this change needs to be made for this one class because it just makes them way too useless. I'm not having fun, Blizz. And will Blizzard give in? I don't know. I ain't gonna answer that. Not a big deal. So there are so I don't want to talk about like those kinds of fears, but I do want to bring up a couple of concerns, which might be the same thing. But I want to bring up a couple of concerns or challenges, I should say. I think that there are several challenges that Classic WoW is going to face because of simply what it is. So I've talked about this before, and I talked about the population of Classic WoW and how at launch, and this playtest will give us some indication too. The population of Classic WoW, with very little doubt in my head, is going to start off huge. It's going to explode. Oh my god, we're probably going to see ridiculous claims like, oh man, servers are overloaded. Lol, look at all these full. Watch. We're going to see. I bet you we're going to see screenshots on Reddit or wherever of the realm lists for Classic WoW. It's going to say everything's full. Yeah. Oh my god. And then you're going to see the server lists for current WoW, and it's going to say low, and then with memes and all sorts of other stuff. So that's going to happen. The population of Classic WoW is going to thrive, at least for a while. Well, I have no idea how long. Maybe forever, but I'm going to presume that it won't, in fact, be forever. But it's going to be huge. And because of that, Blizzard's going to need to respond to that somehow by probably launching more realms. They'll need to launch a sizable number of realms to suit this large population who is interested in checking out this game. Because they can't do anything else. They can increase server caps, which I think is totally within Blizzard's control, but I think that compromises the experience. Having the realm caps be what they were back in vanilla is, I think, important to the experience. Because back then they didn't have dynamic mob spawns, as someone had pointed out in chat. That kind of wasn't a thing. So by raising server caps, that compromises the experience. Of course, phasing and sharding aren't going to be technology that's present in Classic WoW, so screw that. That's not going to happen. The only thing that Blizzard can do is have more realms. Here you go. Let's launch more realms, get people in. But what's going to happen afterwards when undoubtedly the population is going to go down and people fall into kind of a rhythm of, hey, you know what? There's downtime in WoW, in current WoW. There's not much for me to do. The raid's over. I already farmed up my, Azerite X gear. This is pretending we're in like the next expansion already. People are probably going to fall into step and hop back into Classic WoW and do their thing. So there's going to be that kind of population. Those kinds of peaks and valleys are going to occur. Maybe. At least that's what I am suspecting. Overall, though, I feel like the initial launch of Classic WoW, it's going to have a lot of subscribers and a lot of players. It's going to go down over time. So what does Blizzard do then? Because now you have potentially all these dead realms. Very few players that are on these, an economy that can't sustain itself because there's a whole bunch of dead realms. So what do you do? I don't know. That's kind of the purpose of this video. It's not to doomsay. because I would love to just see a discussion as to like what is going to happen afterwards. What's going to be the best solution. What can be done. I'm not here to bring things down. I want Classic WoW to be successful because Happy Blizzard means probably cool things for us. Maybe, I don't know actually. So yeah, I'm curious about that. How are they going to handle that? I was thinking that at some point they will coalesce realms like they do, like they have with current WoW. Eventually, realms are just going to be merged together. Some players are going to have like last names and all that. They're going to have like a realm name attached to the thing. I think that's the least harmful way to pretty much reduce the number of realms without doing too much to disrupt things. But that's something that Blizzard will have to be extremely careful about. I don't see Blizzard doing that anytime. I definitely don't see them doing that in the short term. Like if there's like a really big spike and then all of a sudden the population drops to like 25% or even 10% of what the initial launch numbers were, I think Blizzard should still do nothing for a while, like a year and some change, because Blizzard is introducing this realm, this classic version of WoW that has this weird symbiotic relationship with current WoW. Because some people that are bored with current WoW, they're going to jump back and forth between these two games. So I think it's going to take time for, again, those peaks and valleys to start forming. So that way Blizzard can understand the trend. And then once they do have that, then they can pick and choose and be like, oh, okay, this realm has like at peak 25 users that are coming online a day. Let's do something about this, okay? So I think that as long as Blizzard is taking a very conservative approach to controlling the population, I think that's the safest way to go. But there are other things that Blizzard can do too, like realm transfers, character transfers. I'm sorry, like character transfers and all that. Although that's something to be careful about too, because character transfers are I think they're one very, very big component that disrupted the whole small town community of WoW. I think that's a very big thing. Like not probably not as big as like cross realm and being able to server hop and all that, but just being able to leave or being able to come in is significant. Because what if you had a really shitty reputation as a ninja on your realm? Well, that sucks. But once upon a time, your only recourse was to roll on another realm. If somehow you let people remember you. I don't really buy into the whole reputation argument. That's why. But in that case, after a while, you just transfer off and be like, all right, I'm going to take my tune somewhere else. Because before, you just have to re-roll brand new and just hope that no one recognizes you. Like I said, the experience you were talking about during vanilla would not exist. I'm going to get to that. I'm going to talk about that a little bit because it's subjective. I'm not going to tell Captain, dude, it's not going to be the way it was. Even if I believe it's true, I'm not going to assert that on you, right? But I'm going to bring up the concern and the challenge that Classic WoW is going to face because of that. So the next topic about Classic WoW I want to cover is something new. So I'm definitely going to be all over the place with this. So if I sound really disjointed, if it sounds like word salad, well, that's a typical breezy day. But hopefully this makes sense. So there have been private servers. There have been plenty of private servers, although they're pretty niche, however the hell you want to pronounce it. They're obscure. They're not exactly what you call mainstream. They're something for like very much the WoW enthusiasts. Classic WoW is going to be mainstream. It's going to be advertised. It's going to be talked about. It's going to trend very, very highly on Twitter and Facebook and Reddit and other such places. But Classic WoW it's WoW. It's World of Warcraft from 2004. It's going to be a game that exists outside of time, if that makes sense. It's a 2004 game in a 2019 2020 age. Times have changed. You know, maybe players have changed, maybe players have gotten older, some of them have gotten more sophisticated, some of them seek different forms of satisfaction. The industry has changed in the past 15 or so years since Classic WoW launched. The internet has changed. It's evolved greatly ever since the launch of Classic WoW. Because remember, once upon a time, around the launch of WoW, ain't no YouTube, ain't no Facebook, or was there Facebook? I forget. But we didn't have the kind of services that we have now. Let me read off a list real quick. Before I get to that, these days, with the evolution of WoW and the maturing of the internet and the industry, created this industry of the World of Warcraft. I say this every now and then. It's the industry of WoW. It's this entire subculture, this entire community of content creators, add-on creators, and fan sites that help to support this game that we all enjoy and play. Um, and be, but how is it going to work out with having this very mature industry with with classic WoW? It's weird. It feels a little bit weird to me. And like I said, this isn't something that I'm trying to doomsay, but it's just a concern that I wanted to bring up. The sense of community, part of the big sell of classic WoW and private servers is like, oh, it's this sense of community, this small town sort of feel. Everyone knows each other and such. People talked in trade chat. People talked, went to town and looked for stuff. But the internet's changed things, a lot of things. Where once before you communicated in game or through something like Realm forums. Now there's so many other different avenues of communication, thanks to voice chat channels, which are much more accessible and free, unlike how they were many years ago. Thoughtbot was a pretty strong database for its time, but now these days, Wowhead, with it launching its own classic version of the website, is a much more powerful and robust tool, telling you everything that there is to know before it comes out. We've seen how robust Wowhead and MMO Champion can get with their data mining for stuff that hasn't even come out yet. So there's going to be a very strong industry that will support the game and will allow content creators and mod creators to make these sophisticated mods that improve or enhance or even trivialize an experience that people had where once upon a time we were all just dumb. We're all stupid. Now keep in mind that this industry of WoW that I'm talking about is optional. It's totally optional. There are many people that never heard of Asmongold. They've never heard of any of this stuff. They don't do it. They stay focused just on the game. You can consider them purists in their own way. They don't pay attention to any of that stuff. However, once Classic WoW launches, we're going to have this space where excuse me, where you have these kinds of players who don't pay attention to anything, who are dumb, but you're also going to have vanilla veterans like me, if I stick around long enough. Now I'm not a veteran. What am I what am I saying? But you're going to have vanilla veterans. You're going to have private server enthusiasts. You're going to have a very wide mix of a community of knowledgeable people and unknowledgeable people. It's going to be a much greater gulf than it was before, where it was simply an inexperienced MMO player, which I was, and an experienced MMO player who came from like EverQuest, and there were many of those that started playing Classic WoW at the very start. So it's a concern. It's a challenge, I think, because the 2018 internet, 2018, 2019, 2020 internet, it's going to do weird things with what was once the small town WoW community, because we have so many of these services, and I'm interested to see how well that's going to play out. But I'm not here to talk about private servers though, because private servers, like I said, they're niche, they're small time. People need to hear about it and then jump in. This is classic WoW. This is the official thing. This is something that hell people are going to hear about. There will be no pretense of, oh man, I don't know if I want to do it because this is considered illegal and I don't want to get in trouble. That doesn't exist. That's not even a conversation at this point. It's coming. So there's going to be a lot more people jumping in. So I'm very curious to see like the mix of population that's going to come in, and how are they going to treat each other? Is it still going to have that small time feel of, hey, let me help you out, let me walk you through? I trust that there are still a lot of players that do that, that are going to do that, or that do that now here in current WoW. But I wonder how long that's going to last. How long is it going to be until someone asks in chat, hey, where's such and such? And someone's going to say, well, why don't you look up Wowhead, you dumbass? That's the kind of thing that I feel kind of compromises the community, because the information is so freely accessible that it replaces interaction. To me, that's done damage just like the dungeon finder, just like automatic queues and that sort of thing. Being able to, feeling the need to ask people questions and ask for help, that's not as much of a thing anymore, like it was back in the day when the Thoughtbot gave you some information, but not quite everything. These days, with the right add-on, you can just use Wowhead, and with these add-ons and other supplemental programs, it'll pinpoint exact locations. Of course, there are other things too, like this whole freaking quest UI that'll tell you, hey, go in this direction and follow the arrow, which I don't like. I think that's a pretty doo-doo feature and kind of anti-adventure. I guess to underline it one more time, like the whole industry of WoW and all these supporting things are optional. I want to be optimistic and say, hey, I think people are going to dive in and roleplay themselves back into becoming a classic player and just deal with, hey, I can't fly. It's going to take a while for me to get from point A to point B. Hey, I got to tag mob spawns, or I've got to do this and do that. Gold isn't as accessible, etc., etc., etc. I know Classic WoW isn't going to last past 2 or 3 months for most players. Once to see all the stuff like having need ammo for a hunter. I don't believe that's going to be the case, Kevin. I think that's for people. I think that the quality of life things, I think that's going to weed out the weak very quickly. I don't think it's going to take 2 or 3 months. I think they'll just be like, oh God, this is what it was. Fuck it, I'm done. I think some of the challenges for Classic WoW is going to be at Endgame. Once you're done with it, once you've done everything, how much longer you're going to last. It kind of depends on. I don't think Blizzard has really gotten to like full detail, but I have a feeling that once Classic WoW launches, everything's just going to be available. It's not going to be a gated experience. God, imagine that. Yes, WoW Classic launched, and we're going to start off with this many dungeons, and everyone's the only raid that's open right now is Molten Core. So go ahead and progress through that, and then at some point we're going to open it up, and ta-da, Blackwing Lair. Would classic players be okay with time gating? I don't know. Time gating they didn't really have that word back then. I guess that word never really picked up back in the day. But I think it's because coming off of previous MMOs like EverQuest, that was entirely acceptable. It's like, oh, that's it. This is, if anything, to my memory, people were like, wow, this is really casual, this is really accessible as opposed to before. This is my opinion, all right, so don't get too upset. The effort when it comes to raids today is doing the raid. The effort to doing the raid back then was just getting people to go in with you. The logistics of classic WoW or vanilla WoW was just that much more stringent. So that's where I see the challenge of classic WoW, because you're going to get all these players that are jumping in. Many of them are going to be hardcore. Hell yeah, classic all the way through and through. An unknown amount of people, though, are going to be seasonal folks. Oh, I'm just going to jump in for this because, my guild, the guild on my current WoW, on the BFA servers, it's kind of dead right now. Not really doing much today, whatever. I'll just hang out here for a little bit. So they'll show up. So basically people come and go. So it's going to make the logistics of fielding a 40-man team potentially that much harder. So I can easily anticipate a much greater adoption of, hey, we're gonna do ZGs and AQ20s because I can get a group for that. So those obviously are going to be run a lot more frequently, I would imagine, as opposed to like the 40-mans. I think it'll be cool to see guild alliances, come together so they can field a 40-man team and be able to go in. But I think there's going to be challenges there. But I want to talk about the future of Classic. Let's pretend, or let's be optimistic that Classic WoW is going to be a very successful experiment, and I hope it does. Even as someone who isn't really interested in playing Classic WoW, I hope that it works out, because I want Blizzard to succeed and be able to do other cool things for us. But under the presumption that it does succeed, where do we go from there, I wonder? And I talked about this in a previous video. I'm bringing this up again. There's a divide. There's a split conversation among. From what I've observed, there's a split conversation among Classic fans as to how they want to proceed next. Do they want to see Classic WoW turn into Classic BC? Or should there be an entirely separate realm experience that is just BC? And Wrath of the Lich King. And of course, I know that everyone's asking for it, motherfucking Warlords of Draenor. Hell yeah. I'm just kidding. That's the end of the jokes. But I'm curious how things are going to play out. How things are going to play out later. What is the player demand going to be? What's Blizzard's response going to be? And what's going to be fans' response to that? It's a potential source of negativity, because it's a case of players wanting something and Blizzard saying, no, that's not what we want to do, because this is how we want to design the experience. Or Blizzard going and say, hey, we're going to do this. We're going to slowly transition this into Burning Crusade. And I absolutely trust that there's going to be a strong sentiment from a number of players that are like, no, don't do it. Don't take away my Classic, because this is what they've been wanting for so long. And then it's going to go away forever again, until the next time they bring it back or something like that. And there are lots of convoluted ways that, not convoluted. There are many suggestions that players have had with, hey, what can we do instead? Or how can we implement this? Oh, we can have like I said, we can have a separate realm experience. That way people aren't left behind. People don't have to feel like they're being forced to play BC. Wrath of the Lich King. At the same time, though, some of those players are like, no, but I don't want to lose all these other players as they move on to other expansions, and our little community is going to get even smaller and smaller, and that's going to feel very disjointed. Seeing that's something that I know that's far away. That's far down the line. We don't even have Classic WoW in our hands yet. It's not in front of our faces. We still need to wait and see, and that's something that I can definitely understand why Blizzard isn't saying one peep out of it yet, because we still haven't seen the reception for Classic WoW yet. There's a lot that we don't know about Classic WoW. I'm less concerned about these things, but these are things that people have brought up anyway. The cost. How much is it going to cost? Is it going to be a subscription? Is there going to be no subscription? Is it going to be something that is just included with with while you're subscribed to current WoW, it's like, hey, yes, you get you sir and madam will get access to the latest version of the World of Warcraft with your subscription, as well as a subscription to Classic WoW. I'm sure that I know that there's been a response from players from that idea saying, "Oh, fuck that! I want to play for just Classic WoW because retail is so garbo, lol, and all that." Uh, I don't know what the best model is going to be. It's it's whatever it is. Um, but yeah, there's so many other unknowns. We don't even know 100% sure if it is going to be a progressive realm. Like, are they going to have everything open up? Are they going to open up one segment or one raid at a time and gate it every couple of months, or is it just going to be all laid out? The gates are, the AQ gates are open. Um, everything is accessible, so have at it. I am curious how that's going to work out on something that clean, because our people are just going to be like, all right, let's gear up, and here's me being ignorant about attunements and accessibility. Like, how fast will people just race towards like 20-man content because that's easy, because that is arguably easier to complete? Will they race there and otherwise skip a lot of other content? I don't know. They might. So I think that's those are all the challenges. And yeah, I think those are all the challenges that come into mind with regards to Classic WoW. So if you folks have anything that you want to chime in on, hey, feel free.